Hi everyone, welcome to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. Today I am bringing you the final video in the Colouring for Beginners series, and today we're going to talk about what happens when you are finished colouring. I just want to show you some tips and tricks for finishing off your picture to give it that extra bit of pizzazz before you call it quits and sit back and enjoy your finished article. So I'm just going to get everything together and we can get going. So when we have our finished colour picture, there are ways that we can just bring out some facets and some areas of the picture more than others, just to finish it off and give it that little bit of extra kick. I've got two identical images here that I have coloured by hand, and if anybody else would like to colour this, I do have it in PDF format, so you can drop me a message either in the comments section or you can get in touch with me via any of the social media links which are down in the description too. Anyway, I've deliberately drawn two and coloured two so that you can see the difference between being left as is when you've finished with your coloured pencils and adding other things in. One of the most popular supplies that you will see used and people ask about a lot of the time as well is adding white to the picture, and the way to do that is with a white gel pen. I have here a Uniball Signo 0.7, which is the slightly finer tipped one. There are a multitude of different brands of these gel pens, and they also come in different nib sizes as well. It's really down to preference. Some are generally better than others. However, there are people that just have a preference of one over the other. If it's something that you're interested in, I did do a video on a massive selection of white pens. I will link it in the card just now up here, and I'll stick that in the description if you want to watch it later. And in fact, do you know what? I'll pop it in the end card as well for you so you can watch it after you've finished watching this. However, I digress. Yes, so this is a Uniball Signo and it is a 0.7 tip, so it is reasonably fine. And the idea with using a white gel pen is that you can add some highlights to things, and you can also use it for other purposes as well. So if we just have a look at this right hand one here, this is the one I'm going to be doing the work on. For example, with this picture, we have this reflection that has already been added in. And that's absolutely fine. Some artists will leave things like that out when they're actually creating the colouring pages, so that it's up to you if you want to add something like that in. Obviously I drew this myself, so I put it in. But what's not very becoming about this is the fact that the black line work kind of spoils that. And these white gel pens are great for going over the line work that is in your colouring books, and it just makes that reflection look a little bit more realistic. So I'm essentially just whitening out the line work, and depending on the paper in the colouring book and depending on the ink that's been used, you may have to go over this a couple of times to get it completely covered up. Now that's okay, that is perfectly normal. That is nothing out of the ordinary, and there's certainly nothing wrong with your white gel pen if that is the case. But what you've got to make sure you do is that you let it dry properly before you go over with a second coat. If you don't let the gel pen dry, when you go back in with the nib, it actually scratches it off and you end up seeing more of the line art rather than less of it, so that's quite important. So we're going to let that dry. The other time that I would use a white gel pen in this sort of situation is I would add myself a little highlight in here as well. Now one thing you will find is if you're working over the top of the coloured pencil, that the nib of the white gel pen does tend to get clogged quite quickly, and the best way to remedy that is to keep a scrap of paper. I've always got multicoloured Postit Notes beside me anyway. These are particularly good because the white shows up really well, and if you just have a little scribble, you can see I've done it over there, it just gets the ink flowing again and stops that ball clogging up. So just pop a little bit of that in there as well, because the reflection needs to be consistent as far as I'm concerned if it's all down one side. The other thing you can do as well when you're talking about glass objects, again, you have this great big thick black line, and in real life there's no black lines around anything, and just to give it a bit more sort of realism, you can block out parts of the line work. You don't have to take out the entire thing, but that just gives that sort of illusion that it is more delicate, you know, the fact that it's glass. This is really useful for things like fairy wings as well. If you want to make them a bit more transparent, you can go over the black line work with one of these white gel pens, and it just makes things look a little bit more delicate. So you can see there, again, it's something I'm probably going to have to go over it with another coat, but when you see it next to the other one, it makes a considerable difference. So I'm just going to carry on round here and just block some of this out a little bit. So give it that slightly more sort of delicate look. The other thing that it's good for is helping things to blend into a background. If you are working on like a landscape scene and you have maybe trees or, you know, hills or whatever in the background, blocking out that some of that line work or all of it with a white pen will help it fade into the background. It will push it back further. So that's another handy hint. Right, I'm just going to go back over this now. I'll get my pen working again. The other trick with these gel pens is to use a really light hand. Don't try and sort of scrub it into the paper, because that's not going to help you at all. It's not quite dry, this, I don't think. This part's dry. Now the opposite of using white is obviously to use black. And with a fine liner, it has the opposite effect. It can help make things pop and bring things forward. So if I wanted this cork, for example, to be the focus of my picture, I could actually thicken up this line round the cork using this black fine liner. Now the good thing about these is they are waterproof and archival, so if you wanted to use other medium round about it, for example watercolour paint, you can do so, and it's not going to budge, it's going to stay put. And you can make those lines as thick as you like. They will go down over the top of the line work that's already there, which is good as well. So it blends in nicely, it's not going to stand out against what's already there. So you can see now that cork really pops. No pun intended. So that's a really good trick for making things stand out, is to put a bold outline around the outside, and a black fine liner has many uses. Sometimes as well in lesser quality colouring books, some of the line work is a little bit ragged and lines aren't joined up, or there's parts that have been forgotten. These are great just for filling those in as well, so you can get on with your colouring. So I'd highly recommend them. You don't necessarily have to have one of these Pigma Microns, any fine liner will do, but I do suggest a line width of a line width of at least 0.25 millimeters, so that it actually has some impact on your page. Now the other alternative to a white gel pen is a paint pen, and this is the Posca paint pen. There are many brands, again, different ones. I just happen to use Posca pens, and they are paint in a pen, and they basically serve the same purpose as your white gel pen. So maybe I could just stick in some down here. They do take a little bit longer to dry, but you don't have the problem of the nib clogging up, because it's a soaked nib that's it's paint that's in it. The other nice thing about Posca pens is that you can use a little bit of coloured pencil over the top of them. It won't take a great deal the same way as paper will, but you can tint a white Posca pen with pencil quite easily. But you have to wait until it's dry, so I'm going to let that dry. So you have that option as well, and paint pens come in all different nib sizes as well. This one is a 1M, which is the smallest one you can get, and I find it easier for doing detail work with a nib that size compared to a great big chunky marker. Other things you can use to enhance your pictures is, back to fine liners, is coloured fine liners, and I have a collection of them here, like this. And they can just be used to add in some detail to make your picture just that little bit more interesting. So for example, if you had some petals, you could add in some veins or some lines in there. On this, I'm taking a similar colour and I'm just going to put in some shadow over the top of my pencil work round there. And it's just to give that illusion of roundness on the neck of the bottle. If I wanted to get really fancy, I could start down here, but I'm still waiting on this dry, so I'm not going to do that. But there are so many options for this, and you can, even just a basic set's handy to have. I use them particularly when I am colouring in flowers. I have to say that is when I use them most. But there we go, I can add some more bubbles into the potion that's in my bottle. Maybe some bubbling up on the surface here as well. Ready to pop, pop, pop. I'm just thinking that that's the noise they would make. I don't know if they would make a noise at all, but... So a basic set of coloured fine liners is something that's really handy to have as well, just for adding that little bit extra into your picture. Your other option as well is going back to the gel pens, and again they come in all sorts of colours, it's not just white, and I find these particularly good for doing backgrounds, and it just helps to add a little bit of interest without having to get into anything complicated. Now there we go, I have a pink one here, I'm pretty sure this is a fluorescent one, but just to, oh my goodness it is, just to add something in to make things a bit more cohesive or to fill the space a little bit without having to use, you know, any sort of complex techniques or whatever. But you can find one that's in a similar shade to your background and you can just pop in a pattern. That's very common. Or some people like to do sort of broken circles. It just depends on what you're feeling, but they are really handy to have as well. Now same applies, you have to wait for them to dry. Make sure you don't smudge them, you have to be very careful with that. Just seeing if my Posca pen's dry. I'm just going to give you a demonstration here. This is just a random pencil, it just happens to be in a similar colour to this. But if you're gentle, and you can see there that, if I tilt that slightly, you can see there that the Posca pen is in fact taking the coloured pencil. So you can pop a little bit of that in, but say don't go crazy with it because it will start to lift off the paper. But again, it's just added to the curvature of the potion bottle whilst maintaining that sort of highlighted area. So that's something else that you can play about with, just to make your drawing a bit more interesting. The last cool thing that I have is one of these, and this is a Wink of Stella brush. It looks a bit like a makeup brush, and these come in all sorts of different colours and types. You have Wink of Stella, which is glitter, and you have Wink of Luna, which is more of a metallic shimmer. And this one is the clear one, so it is very, very subtle. I'm not a big person on glitter myself. I'm not really one for sparkles. So it is very, very subtle, but you do get some very, very bright colours with them as well. And this is lovely for things like your potion that might, you know, is a little bit magical. You can add that again. It's great for fairy wings. It's great for lots of stuff. And it's the same as a water brush. So the ink is in here in this reservoir, and you squeeze this and it sort of scoots it down into this chamber and it comes out the tip. And the good thing about this is, again, you can let this dry and you can build up layers of it. So if it's not sparkly enough for you, you just let it dry and you can go back and add in some more. Now if I hold this up and tilt it slightly, you can just see the tiny shimmer on the surface there. So it is a very subtle but nice addition to your drawing. And I think it's a lovely way to finish things like this off, especially, you know, the more sort of whimsical items. I've just put that all over the paper. I've had a Wink of Stella explosion. So if I zoom out a little bit now and we look at these items side by side, you will agree, hopefully, that the one on the right hand side does look substantially better than the one on the left hand side, and it's so simple and easy to do. So once you are absolutely satisfied that you are finished and you've added all the enhancements that you would like, the last thing that I do with all of my colouring pages is I spray them with Fixative. And that is so that the colour doesn't transfer onto another page in a colouring book or onto my hands or anywhere else for that matter. So the one that I use is the Winsor & Newton Fixative, and it's the yellow label one. This one is a workable fixative, so you can spray it and then you can actually draw over the top of it. Now that comes in very handy if you want to do soft pastel backgrounds, but that's another video for another time. But I just find that this is a good all-rounder. It is incredibly flammable and it is also incredibly strong smelling, and it is not good to breathe this in. So when you are spraying your drawings, take them to a well ventilated area, preferably outside, away from any pets or children, and literally you want to shake your can and you want to cross it in bursts like this, and then maybe that way, and that is all you'll need. And all it will do is put a coating down and it'll stop the pencil transferring onto anything else. It also helps to preserve the picture in a way as well. Now I do know people have said that you can use hairspray and it does the same job. The problem with hairspray is some hairsprays remain sticky and tacky, and that's obviously going to cause you problems in a colouring book. Not only that, hairspray does yellow over time, so while it may seem like a good idea and it's cheap and all the rest of it, it's generally, because it's not built for that purpose, it will yellow over time. A can of Fixative varies in price, and I think I got this one on Amazon for about £12, but this has lasted me forever. There's still about half a can left and I've had it about 6 months, and I spray everything with Fixative. You don't need a lot, a little of it goes a long way. If you're in the States, the Krylon workable Fixative, I think it got a red lid on it, I can't remember just off the top of my head. Krylon workable Fixative is used by many people that I know, and it seems to be the way forward. After that, you just leave it to dry for an hour or two, and that is it preserved, and you can move on to your next colouring picture. So I hope that you have found some of these finishing hints helpful and you might use them in your colourings going forward. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we will see you soon in the colour cave for another video, and we will play with more art stuff. Bye for now, everyone. Aha, see, I remembered. There's the video for the white gel pens that I talked about earlier on. Also, you can smash that like button if you want to help the channel out and hit subscribe. And as always, I look forward to your comments.